In the playoffs, we often see the best of the best as far as quarterback play. However, there are also many examples where you're just scratching your head at how poorly the quarterbacks played. Now, when Tyrod Taylor and Blake Bortles are dueling it out, this may not be too surprising, but once in a while, you'll see much better quarterbacks struggle in the biggest moments of their season. In 2009, the Ravens and Patriots were ready to clash for the first time in the playoffs. The Patriots were heading in leading the all-time series 5-0, but already with some crazy games. In the Ravens' inaugural season in 1996, the two teams combined for 84 points in a last-minute Patriots 46-38 win. In the Patriots' undefeated season in 2007, they had much trouble with the 5-11 Ravens on the road, but got a last-minute touchdown to win 27-24. The two teams even battled it out earlier in the season, once again going to the Patriots 27-21. It was anticipated to be another back-and-forth battle in the wild card. However, this was not quite the case. The Ravens came in and dominated the Patriots on the road from the very first play. In earning their first ever win against the Patriots, the Ravens won convincingly 33-14. The two quarterbacks, Joe Flacco and Tom Brady, were expected to put out good or at least decent performances despite some question marks. Joe Flacco was only in his second season in the league and already had iffy playoff numbers in 2008 and overall just an up and down career to this point. Tom Brady, on the other hand, was much more well established in New England, winning 3 Super Bowls and having that dominant 2007 season, but was also following up an ACL haunted 2008 season and just not quite as good of a season statistically in 2009. Despite this, there was still some hope that both quarterbacks could shine when it mattered most in this playoff game. Now, knowing this score, and that both teams combined for 47 points, with there also being no defensive touchdown, you're probably thinking that both quarterbacks played fine. I mean, yeah, the Ravens' ground attack might have been the reason that they dominated offensively, and the Patriots fell behind by 24 points in the first quarter, but how bad could it truly be? Well, it was really bad. Tom Brady had arguably his worst game of the season, with it being his lowest passer rating at 49.1, throwing his most picks at 3, and having his worst yards per attempt that season at 3.7. The Patriots offense could not get anything going from the start, as Tom Brady turned it over 3 times in the first quarter alone. He also topped his worst QBR that season at 9.1. This was debatably Tom Brady's worst playoff game of his career. But you're probably thinking, Tom Brady lost. Maybe he played a little worse than I would have thought. But surely Joe Flacco, as the winner, whose offense scored 33 points, managed to have at least a decent performance. Well, that did not happen either. In fact, Joe Flacco somehow managed to play worse than Brady. In fact, while Joe Flacco in 2012 debatably had the best playoff run by a quarterback in NFL history, the exact opposite may have happened in 2009 in his 2 games. We'll get into the other game in a minute, but in looking at this performance in New England by Joe Flacco, it was one for the ages, and not in a good way. Joe Flacco finished the day completing just 4 out of his 10 passes for 34 yards, no touchdowns, and an interception. His final passer rating was 10.0. The Ravens' pass attack got nothing going throughout the game, and after some early struggles, they decided to pretty much just run the ball all game. Not a bad idea considering the final result of this game. As mentioned earlier, Flacco wasn't just historically bad for a winning quarterback in the playoffs this game, but managed to follow it up with another disastrous performance in the divisional round against the Colts. The Ravens lost this game 20-3, and Flacco was 20 of 35 for 189 yards, no touchdowns, 2 picks, and had a 48.4 passer rating. While Flacco is typically known as a very solid playoff performer, and certainly after his first couple of years that is quite justified, this 2009 run could not have gone much worse. It is honestly quite surprising, even as a Joe Flacco supporter, that it does not get talked about more about how ugly this playoff run truly was. Both quarterbacks had arguably their worst playoff performance of their career on this day, and their combined performances are right near the top for the worst playoff quarterback duel of all time, and without much debate, the worst wild card quarterback duel of all time. The only wild card duels I can think of that are remotely close to being as bad are 2005, where you had Mark Brunell for the Redskins against Chris Sims for the Buccaneers, and then 2017, which I alluded to earlier, where Tyrod Taylor and Nathan Peterman went up against Blake Bortles. However, the stats in both these games are ultimately better, and even despite this, all of these quarterbacks were either bad or washed. It is not surprising that they may struggle in the playoffs. Tom Brady and Joe Flacco, two supposed great playoff quarterbacks? Yeah, that's a different story. This also feels like a good time to mention that Tom Brady has a worse playoff passer rating than Tim Tebow. As if it could not get any worse for this playoff matchup, let's compare it to the other game that happened later in the day. That was Packers-Cardinals, and oh yeah, this might be the greatest playoff quarterback duel of all time. Kurt Warner threw more touchdowns than incompletions, and Aaron Rodgers in his first playoff start threw for over 400 yards and came back from a 21-point deficit to tie it. This makes this all even crazier that we may have had the best and the worst wildcard quarterback duels occur on the exact same day, just 3 hours apart. As for the Ravens-Patriots rivalry, it continued to get better and more intense following this game. The two teams have since played in 3 other playoff matchups, and the Patriots only lead the series 6-5 since this game. There have been many classic games since this one, including an overtime win by the Patriots in 2010, the drop and miss kick that sent the Ravens home in the 2011 title game, Justin Tucker's barely good field goal in 2012, the Ravens' revenge AFC Championship win in 2012, the back-and-forth 2014 playoff game that started the Patriots' Super Bowl run that season, as well as several others. It isn't too earth-shattering to say that this game was an outlier compared to most other matchups between the two teams. Most times they play, it is very competitive, and never have both quarterbacks played as bad in this rivalry as we saw in this playoff game in 2009. Any given playoff game, you could be watching 2 great quarterbacks playing great, 2 great quarterbacks playing bad, 2 bad quarterbacks playing great, 2 bad quarterbacks playing bad, and anything and everything else in between. However, it does not get much more shocking than what we saw in this Ravens-Patriots duel in 2009 from a quarterback perspective. On this day in January of 2010, we witnessed one of the best quarterback duels of all time, as well as one of the worst of all time. As far as this matchup between Tom Brady and Joe Flacco, neither quarterback lived up to their playoff hype.